The internet is about to have another iPhone moment, and I'm pretty sure about that, and I'm super excited and hyped. I'm pretty sure that everyone already has heard about MCP, the Model Context Protocol, which should allow LLMs or AI chat clients to do more than just aggregate information and present them to your answers, but to act with the outside world. And I want to explain why I'm so excited in particular. So to answer that, we have to get back and ask ourselves what essentially is the internet. So the internet is more or less just a bunch of websites, but also applications. You have, for example, blogs, online shops, but also apps like Google Calendar and so on. So in the early times, we basically just had a random pile of websites and URLs. And then once the search engines came along, for example, Google or Yahoo, whatever was there before, that made a dramatic shift in how we achieve or how we interact and use the internet. Because all of a sudden, all that information was accessible for us. So if you want to buy a bike or you need a bike or something, you would Google for bikes, what kinds of bikes there are, what the one might be that would best fit to you. And then also you would find it to the best price at some online shop. So search engines also did something else on an economic standpoint, because now if you would want to have a bike being presented on the web, you would need to build a website that is aligned or plays by the rules of search engines, because you would want to make sure that those search engines would also give users your website as a response to a query. So search engines did not only change how we would use the internet, but it would also change the whole economy on how we are building for the internet itself. If you compare the chatbot like OpenAI or ChatGPT with a Google search engine, they are kind of similar actually, because let's think about how a search engine works. There is a crawler that crawls the whole web, and then it creates indices and basically is able to match the query that you type into Google to output you the likely best source where you would be able to answer your question or find what you're looking for. And now a large language model, which is the basis for every chat app, is essentially doing something very similar. It also crawls the whole information on the internet, but then it more or less compiles the information in a different way. And then if you do your search query in the chat client, it does not link you and send you to that external source, which is likely the best answer, but it already provides you the likely best answer directly in the chat. And that's a fundamental difference, because chatbot is interactive and it builds upon the queries and the requests that you send to it. While a search engine, if you do one request and the second and the third, they are all completely not related to each other. They are completely different, or they are completely indifferent. Every request is exactly the same. In essence, it's kind of similar, but the interaction part is very different. And the interactive part, but also another one that I will get to later, are what makes it so different. And I think the likelihood of like very large changes in the way how we interact with computers or the internet itself will likely change, and with it the whole economy. So let's think about first, what does an MCP actually do? So in my Kinvivo app, which is essentially an app that helps you to organize and improve your everyday life in a household, you have a groceries list. So what I implemented is a feature where you could just in natural language say, I need 2 bananas, I need a bread, and also, 500 milliliters of milk, And then what happens is I use the Whisper API that makes text out of what you just said. And then I send this to a function called to open API. Basically, what I do is I send it that text. So that could also be from a chatbot, and then I give it a function that basically says, okay, I want you to do to extract the recipes and give it to me in a structured format, like name and notes as an array. And then when I get that, I can post it to my endpoint and then actually put this data into my database, so that I, as a user of Kinvivo, see now the items on the list. Essentially, that's what the MCP also allows you. to take the input of the user, the LLM can then decide to use this functionality. The functionality provided to the chat is basically saying, okay, you have to structure it in this exact schema. And then it can be, for example, forwarded to an endpoint or into the database. What I would want to do now with Kinvivo is to create an MCP server so that I not only can within the app itself record something, but I could also use my chat client, and then I would plan the weekend meal or whatever, and then I would continue and just say, please put it onto the Kinvivo groceries list. And then the element would basically go there, see the MCP server of Kinvivo, and then also add this to my list. So that's essentially what I will be using MCP for. And in essence, that is obviously very powerful, because in a search engine you would never be able to do that because there is no interaction model more or less in place in a search engine, but there is with a chat client. And now with MCP, I can enable the chat client to do much more, not only to gather information and share information and answer questions, but it can really do stuff in the digital world. And the exciting part for MCP is, I think, two things. The one, the protocol itself, I mean, yes, there's a protocol that we want to use that standardizes it, that's great. But that we are kind of starting to now really think about server-to-server interactions and make that a big thing, that basically everyone, hopefully in a certain distant future, needs to have those MCP servers. That's a dramatic shift. And the reason why I think that there will be so many MCP servers is that it's not unlikely that the entry point to the internet itself will become this chatbots and not Google anymore. Because in a way, the chat gives you the answers as well, but more concise, and you don't have to do a lot of different Google queries and then aggregate the data if you do research, for example. But that's something that the chat already does for you. So I think it's not very unlikely that the chat becomes the de facto standard how you get into the internet. And then it might replace Google as the default, but it might also replace, for example, Amazon for searching for products. And then if that happens, that means every user is now using it. That means that the whole ecosystem around it has to change as well. Because online shops, they kind of have to offer MCP servers that, for example, tell the LLM that what products you can find here and the description and the specifications of those products, but then also maybe allowed to create a basket for the user. If he says, okay, please, for example, buy that bicycle, the LLM will be able to add it to the basket, send it to your basket, and you just do the checkout there, or maybe even already do the purchase himself. So yeah, that's why I think overall MCP is so very interesting. It's the standardization obviously plays a huge role in it, but the idea to now start working and thinking ahead in terms of server to server or agent interaction is pretty amazing. And then also the fact that the chat client might be the default gateway for all the users to basically use the internet going forward. That will definitely change how the whole ecosystem has to interact, because for search engines in the past, we've built websites for the search engines because all the users are using search engines. And now this might change, and we kind of have to adopt and build for LLMs because all the users are essentially using chat and AI clients. So that's what got me very excited over the weekend when I was thinking about the MCP context in Kinvivo and how I would want to use that. And I have a lot of more thoughts about that topic, which I will discuss later on in some upcoming videos. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, got a thought from that. And if you have opinions on that, please feel free to share them. I'm always interested in discussing right now, especially MCP related topics. Cheers. See you next time.